Welcome to the channel. I'm your host. Today's question is, can we be too honest? If you'd like to submit a question to be featured in an upcoming episode, you can do so through the link in the description below. There are many sayings that touch upon the virtue of honesty, such as honesty is the best policy and honesty is the mother of all virtues. Honesty is considered a positive character trait that we should strive for. And generally speaking, it's a good thing. But there may be some rare instances in which honesty may not be the best policy. So let's explore this topic further. To answer this question, I'll first need to explain what honesty is. There are two main types of honesty. The first type is intellectual honesty. This refers to our obligation to seek out and acknowledge the truth. It means being intellectually sincere and open-minded and not deliberately deceiving ourselves. The second type of honesty is interpersonal honesty. This refers to our obligation not to deceive others. It means being truthful in our interactions with other people and not intentionally misleading them. In other words, telling the truth based on the facts as we know them. In general, we can say that honesty is doing what is right by the intellect and not doing what is wrong by the intellect. However, the issue becomes more complicated when we consider the intent behind our actions. For example, if someone asks you, "Does this dress make me look fat?" most would agree that it's better to be honest and say yes, rather than lie and say no. In this scenario, there's no clear benefit to lying, and doing so could potentially damage the relationship. So it seems that honesty is the best policy here. But how about if your friend asks you, "How much do you think I should be asking for this painting at the flea market?" If you know nothing about paintings or the market value of paintings, and your friend has done extensive research and has a good idea of what the painting is worth, but he just wants your opinion, then telling him the truth that "I don't know" or "I have no opinion on this matter" might not be the best policy. In this situation, telling the truth doesn't really help anyone and might even annoy your friend. Lying and saying, "Oh, go for $200" might be a better policy since it advances the purpose of your friend's request. Similarly, if your friend asks you if he looks good in a new haircut, if you think he looks bad, it might be a better policy to lie and say, "Looks great," instead of being brutally honest. Telling the truth in this situation will only cause him emotional distress, and there's no real benefit to it. Now, of course, it depends on the friendship and the personalities of both parties involved as to whether or not this sort of white lie would be acceptable. A close friend might expect more honesty from you, while a casual acquaintance might not take offense to a small white lie. In these situations, it seems that honesty is not the best policy. However, we might argue that the same logic applies to the first situation as well. If your friend asks you if she looks fat and you reply, "Yes," and she feels upset, you could argue that there was no real benefit to telling her the truth. She would have been better off not hearing the truth. Therefore, in this situation, lying would have been the better policy. So based on these examples, we can see that there might be rare instances in which honesty is not the best policy. This is because honesty can sometimes do more harm than good, and sometimes it's better to protect someone from unnecessary emotional pain or to advance the purpose of the conversation. In these cases, we have an obligation to consider the potential consequences of our honesty before speaking. This leads us to the question, what are the potential consequences of our honesty? Well, there are many possible consequences. We might hurt someone's feelings, damage a relationship, cause emotional distress, or even put ourselves in danger. On the other hand, there are also potential benefits to honesty. We might help someone improve, avoid deception, build trust, or simply uphold our own values and principles. Ultimately, the decision of whether or not to be honest in a given situation is a complex one that requires careful consideration of the potential consequences. In general, we should strive to be honest, but there may be rare instances in which honesty is not the best policy. Now, some might object and say that there are no such things as rare instances, that honesty should always be the best policy. And they would be right in a sense. Honesty is indeed the best policy in the sense that honesty is the only policy. Anything else would be a lie. However, this doesn't necessarily mean that we should always speak the truth. There's a difference between being honest and being brutally honest. Being brutally honest is like being an open-hearted samurai who takes no prisoners. You speak the truth no matter what, even if it hurts, but sometimes it's better to be more tactful and less direct with our honesty. For example, there's a story about a Chinese emperor who had a special talent for finding beautiful women. One day he asked his servant to find a wife for him. The servant found a woman who was so beautiful that the emperor immediately forgot about her other attributes and chose her to be his wife solely because of her beauty. Every time the emperor wanted to marry another woman, his servant followed the same procedure, and the emperor ended up with a harem full of beautiful but otherwise uninteresting women. Eventually, the emperor got tired of his servant's choices and decided to find a different one. When he dismissed his old servant, he said, "You are free to go and find a wife for yourself." The servant replied, "Thank you, but I have no desire to get married." The emperor was surprised. "Why not? You're young and handsome. Any woman would be lucky to have you." The servant smiled and said, "Because I have seen too many beautiful women, Your Majesty. I am no longer interested in their beauty." The emperor realized that his servant was right. He had become too focused on one particular attribute, and this had blinded him to the other important qualities that a woman should possess. From that day on, he told his servants to find wives for him based on more than just their physical appearance. The servant in this story could have been more honest with the emperor from the beginning. He knew that the emperor was only interested in beauty, so he should have told him directly. However, he didn't do that. Instead, he waited until the end of his service to tell the emperor the truth. In this case, the servant's honesty saved him from losing his job and possibly his life, as well as helped the emperor to learn an important lesson. So, in this situation, it was better for the servant to be less than honest. Of course, it's easy to say that the servant was justified in his actions. After all, he was protecting himself and helping the emperor to improve. But we can't apply this logic to every situation. Sometimes honesty is necessary and beneficial, even if it hurts. But in this particular case, it wasn't. In conclusion, I would say that yes, we can be too honest. Honesty is generally a good thing, but there may be rare instances in which honesty is not the best policy. In those situations, it's better to be less than honest. For example, if someone asks you if you think they look fat, and you know that they are sensitive about their weight, it's probably better to either change the subject or compliment them. Telling the truth in this situation will only cause them emotional distress, and it won't really help anyone. Of course, there are other situations in which honesty is more important. For example, if someone asks you if you like their new haircut and you think it looks terrible, it's probably better to be honest and tell them. This will help them to avoid making the same mistake again. Ultimately, the decision of whether or not to be honest in a given situation is a complex one that requires careful consideration of the potential consequences. In general, we should strive to be honest, but there may be rare instances in which honesty is not the best policy. So the answer to the question, can we be too honest, is yes, we can be too honest. Thank you for watching this episode. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe for more philosophy content. As always, I appreciate your support, and I'll see you in the next one.